I'd like to call to order this work-study special meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District. It is Monday, June 26th, and it is 5:30. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are in executive session. Oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the work-study special meeting in Cave Creek Unified School District. It is 6 o'clock, Monday, June 26th. Item 2.0, public hearing for the adoption of the 2023-24 budget. Any comments? Okay. We are done with the public hearing. Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 2.3, public comments. Are there any? Okay, no public comments. Well, I kind of went out of order here, so I apologize. Item 3.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Oh, yeah. I'm kind of off my mark here, so roll call. I just got back from being out of town, so I apologize. All members of the board are here. Mrs. Ulmer is connected telephonically. From the cabinet, we have Mrs. Rodriguez, Dr. Jensen, and that's it. And Mr. Dolezal. So, formal adoption of the agenda.
Madam President, if I may make one comment.
Yes.
There was a revision to 6.1
Okay.
that was made earlier. The board was notified. For the public record, the grants specialist job description has been removed, and the person on the HR list that was slated to go into that position has also been removed from your agenda. We will be bringing that back to the board in the August meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody make any revisions to the order of the agenda?
Need a motion first.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any changes to the agenda?
I would like to pull 6.1 out of action consent, and we can just place it at the end after action consent if that
Okay.
works.
Any other changes? All right, all in favor to accept the revised agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, our revised agenda. All right. 4.1, call to the public. All right, no calls to the public. Item 5.1, fiscal year 2023-24 budget presentation presented by Mrs. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So this evening, I just want to give you an overview of the budget that we're asking you to adopt later on in the agenda. So we have a requirement by statute 15905A that we must propose a budget no later than July 5th. That's been done. That was done at our last board meeting. Adopt a budget that is the same as the proposed, which that is what you have in front of you later on in the agenda this evening. The budget must be published on Arizona Department of Education's website. That has been done. That was done on June 15th, so we met the 10 days. And the reason it was done on June 15th was because that is when the department actually opened up a new application where we can submit them. Otherwise, it would have been done the day after the board meeting. And the governing board held a public meeting on today, June 26th. We just held the public meeting. And then the board will adopt it prior to July 15th, and that's what's on the agenda later this afternoon, or this evening.
Thank you.
I have additional information if you
Okay.
would like.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we shared this with you in the proposed budget, just the change in the ADM, which is how we are funded, the base pupil amount, and then the change in our primary assessed value and the tax rate will be decreasing. So this information was shared with you at the time we proposed. But what I'd like to share with you this evening is we have $1.6 million available in additional funding. So I'd like to show you how we're going to be recommending that be allocated. So if you recall, we approved increases to salary schedules back in February. For certified and classified, 2.5, for administrators, 1.5. We had a health insurance increase, which we were very pleased that it came back as low as it did, so 3.9. And then this evening, I have two of our representatives from the Arizona Risk Retention Trust, because liability insurance is going to be on the agenda later on, and we're asking you to approve that. It did increase. I will share with you the increases here in a minute. And then Alliance Workers' Comp, which is also associated and affiliated with Arizona Risk Retention Trust, but that decreased. So we have really positive experience with our workers' comp, which is a tribute to the schools and HR and how well we educate our employees and how to stay safe. And then we have a 5% inflation factor because we know the cost of goods and services go up every year, so we added that additional. So that total is an additional $820,000 and $830 that we will be projecting will be increased above and beyond what we're spending this year. So we had one-time funding, and that's part of what that 1.6 is. That one-time funding is just going to be for this year, so we can't count on that year after year. They didn't put it in our base, they just gave us a one-time allocation. So our recommendation is that we spread it over the next 3 years. And here is how, when the IBN team met, they were given these allocations. 60% of what we pay out total in salaries goes to teachers. 30% of what we pay out total in salaries goes to classified staff, and 10% goes to administrators. So each group took those allocations and they decided how they were going to be spread out. So you have in your agenda item, you will see there's also approval for these increases. So what it will look like is the classified and administrator stipends will get split evenly. So they're just going to take the amount for their allocation and they're going to spread it across all of the classified staff and all the administrators evenly. Certified, however, thought that honoring years of service was really important. And there have been times where the district has been really lean and hasn't been able to give some of our teachers additional monies, but we have new people coming in that we're paying at a higher rate because we need to attract new teachers to our district. So this is a way to honor the staff that has been here and loyal to the district. So they'll receive $300 if they've been here for 1 year, and then $76 for every year after. So that's how that allocation came about. Now, we are going to put 2/3 of that money aside, and that will be then for next year, another third will be taken to the table to IBN, and we will have a conversation. So it's not that this is going to be allocated the same way for the next 3 years. Every year it will be revisited and looked at to see if there is a different way that we want to share this money. But we have committed, and I'm asking the board to commit that this one-time allocation be invested in our people. So that's what the recommendation will be. So here's the trust renewal. So what you see is a total of 7% increase. So here's the large components. So our general liability coverage, our automobile coverage, our property coverage, and our prepaid legal. Now that prepaid legal is what we paid out this year. That's not what we paid additional this year from last year, but it is a little bit higher, and it is a factor in the increase. So this is what that looks like. So our ADM went down a little bit. We are all very aware of that, and we're going to work on that. But the insurable value went up. So this again is that factor of inflation. And so it costs more now to replace buildings and roofs and things like that when we have claims. The professional liability went up slightly. You'll see our liability, auto liability went down a little bit. Again, that property, because the insured value went up, the cost to insure that property went up as well. And then cyber liability. This is a really hot topic out there right now, and we are doing a lot to keep our systems safe and our information safe. But unfortunately, there are a lot of bad actors out there right now, and they are stealing through means of electronic access to our data. So the liability insurance for that went up because there have been several claims, and if you've heard in the news, several school districts and government agencies that have been hit by these bad actors. And then our prepaid legal. Bill and I have talked about this. We are going to make sure that the way we are using our legal firms are most beneficial to the district to try to minimize that cost in the future. I will tell you, a lot of that cost is because of special education instances where we have to go to negotiate with parents and things like that for services for children. So again, working on that with our special ed director and our schools. And then this is the Alliance. And our high-risk category, because our claims are so good and because we have really safe practices in the district, that has gone down. So we're very excited about that. So here's what it looks like altogether with the dollar amount. So liability insurance, we paid $629 last year. We're going to pay this year $674 next year, $45,000 difference. And then workers' comp went down $27,000. So at this time, I'd like to just pause a moment and see if the board members have any questions for our trust representatives who are here tonight with us.
I do have a question for you.
Oh my God.
When these renewals are determined, is the experience just Cave Creek, or is it across the whole trust?
Thanks. You can hear me? Or the recording can hear me? Okay. So as a member of the trust, we do two things. We first budget the needs of the whole pool, and we create the pool rates. And then your individual loss experience as Cave Creek is factored in. You guys are a good risk for the trust. Your overall 10-year loss ratio, which means how much you've paid in versus how much we've paid out, is about 30%. It's a good risk. We like that. But the whole pool needs that 14% total insurable value increase, which is driving the bottom line, really. And the commercial market for property is hard. That's what we like to call it in insurance, is a hard market. And so we are seeing both the requested increase in property values, and then if you were to go to the commercial market for property insurance, you would probably see a rate increase on top of that. And members of the trust are not seeing a rate increase on top. We are adjusting property values to be in line with payout costs, replacement value. We have various examples of replacing almost the exact same thing 3 years later, and it's astronomical. But the board of the trust chose to hold the line on the rate increase for property. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Could you introduce yourself so people watching the recording know who you are?
Absolutely. My name is Kendra Callahan, and I serve as the Director of Operations for the Trust and the Alliance both.
Okay. On the increases across the board, I'm just looking specifically at the last 3 years, 2 years and this proposed one here. You know, if this is the same increases across the entire state, eventually we're going to, the smaller districts eventually won't be able to afford the insurance. We've gone up, in the last 3 years, we've gone up over $219,000 in our insurance coverage that we're paying to the trust. And that's an awful big budget line for us smaller districts to work around. Eventually, I don't know what we'll do if we would need to go out and look for another company or another service. We can't keep having $45,000 increases year after year after year. For us, that's a whole full-time teacher. So we let one full-time teacher go so we can pay our insurance. It's a bad place for us to be in. I know you don't have an answer. I'm just making the statement. It's just it's a huge increase from 3 years ago. We were paying $456,000, and now we're at $675,000. You know, if I'm managing my money at my home, and that goes up that much, I'm turning off the cable bill. You know, something's got to be reduced, and unfortunately, I feel like the trust has the school districts a bit over a barrel, because you kind of have a monopoly on things here, as far as I know, unless there are other companies in the state offering value here. You know,
Well, Member Brown, there are other liability insurances that we can get quotes from, but the trust is an add value on top of liability. So there's lots of different services that we receive from the trust. And I do hear what you're saying, yes. To be responsible for the monies that we've been entrusted with, it would behoove us to go out and see what are the options and what would be the difference in the values that the trust does bring us in training. Remember, we do receive a 5% discount when we participate in different trainings and attend different conferences that the trust does hold. It is definitely shown in our alliance and our claims that have gone down with our workers' comp. So those are being taken advantage of, but they have transportation training and HR training and all of those kind of things that we attend. So I would definitely, if the board gave me direction, go out and get quotes and look at our options for liability insurance, and then I could bring back those comparisons next year.
I mean, I guess we would need to look at our budget. You know, what's the tipping point for us? The trust piece right now proposed is $675,000, and then the workman's comp is another $180,000. So what is that? Almost $900,000. I mean, that's almost quick math in my head. 3% of our entire budget is going to go to insurance.
A big portion of yes, it does.
Okay. I mean, every year it goes up, as does everything else. I understand that. But eventually, us smaller districts, we're going to have to pick and choose something here down the road. If the increases keep going, we just won't be able to afford it.
Yeah, we'll have to have those conversations when we get to that point.
Okay. Thank you.
One other question for you. Since we have such a good retention, how do we get a big benefit as far as the bottom line goes? Because you've got your pool, and we unfortunately, the good guys have to kind of
Share the load sometimes.
Exactly.
I believe that there are the benefit of pooling. I really do think, and again, I work in it, so I am biased, but I do think that the benefit of public entity pooling benefits most members when they need it. So you guys had a relatively hard insurance year this year. So in the last 12 months, we paid out more than you guys have paid in.
Sure.
That doesn't happen every year. And a little guy down the street, that might not happen in 20 years, but then they get hit with a claim that is 1,000 times more than they've ever paid us. So I really think that I don't think the little guys are carrying the big guys, and I don't think the big guys are carrying the little guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Item 6, action consent.
I-
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I keep jumping ahead here.
I'm almost done. Okay. Okay, so bottom line, this is what we're looking at. So here's the available funds. We did have some vacancy savings this year. We unfortunately had some positions we were not able to fill, and then the additional expenditures. So available one-time funds we're bringing to the district in this budget are $1.5 million. Recommendation from the IBN is $365,000, which then leaves that balance of one-time funds, $794. What that will look like is you will see it in the budget, but you will see it on salary lines. So it's not going to be like one line on the budget that you're going to say, oh, I know that's saved for later. But in our accounting system, I'm going to have a special account code where it's saved for later so that it doesn't go anywhere, so that I can track that, so that I know that is what we're going to have in reserve for next year and the year after. So then the next steps, I will ask you to adopt the budget this evening, and then we will ask you to approve the IBN recommendations.
Questions? I think giving each classification an option, the ability to sort of direct how they're going to use their money was giving them ownership. Mm-hmm. And I think that was very insightful to do that. And I like that we're honoring longevity. So, very good.
Same. I've always appreciated the input from IBN, even in the years past of what they do and their collaboration. So,
They're a great group, and they're very thoughtful.
yeah.
Really good conversations.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, now item 6, action consent. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Jackie?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, item 6 passes. Item 6.1, human resource items. This was to be presented by Dr. Henriksen.
And unfortunately, Dr. Henderson could not join us tonight. He is on vacation this week. So I move that the governing board approve the HR items as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Comments, questions on 6.1?
Yeah, I pulled this out. There's an item, there's an ongoing item that has to deal with I need to say this correctly. There's an ongoing item with a person that's volunteering within the district, and that person has shown up on this action consent to receive a stipend. And before we should offer out this stipend, this is something that was brought to my attention back on May 17th, and I forwarded it to Ms. Rodriguez, and we haven't not gotten any kind of an answer to go back to the parents that brought this to me, and thus I can't vote yes on this item because that just kind of seems not proper. And I'm sorry I'm being vague because I know Ms.
Yeah, we can't.
Rodriguez and Mr. Dolezal know.
Yes, and Mr. Dolezal and our athletic director are addressing the issue that you have brought to us. Unfortunately, we can't discuss the names because we haven't noticed this employee. So we are addressing it. It is being looked at, and Mr. Dolezal is working with our athletic director for your concerns.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, item passes.
So I'm sorry,
Oh,
can
go
I
ahead.
interrupt for just a moment? With the passage of this, you have approved 2 new administrators for the district. One of them is here with us this evening, Ryan Plutnick. I'd just like to read a little bit about Ryan. So I'm pleased to introduce Ryan as a new member of our leadership team. Ryan will serve as the Director of Student Services at the district office. Ryan has worked in education for nearly 20 years, and in the past 10, he's worked in different capacities at middle and high schools for the Deer Valley Unified School District. We won't hold that against you, Ryan. Most recently, he served 3 years as a principal at Galvin Peak. Prior to working at Deer Valley, Ryan began his educational career, wait for it, Cave Creek Unified School District. So we're so happy to have you back as part of our family. For 9 years, he worked at Cactus Shadows in various positions, such as a tutor and a coach and a career and technology education teacher. Dr. Plutnik received his bachelor's degree in marketing from ASU and postbac in secondary education from Ottawa University and a master's in coaching from Ball State University, Ball State University, and second master's in education administration for GCU, and a doctorate at GCU. So obviously, Mr. Plutnik really values education. He's no stranger to Cave Creek, and we are so pleased to welcome him back to our family. So Ryan, with that, would you like to join us and say a few words?
President Busby, governing board members, I am so honored to be standing here tonight and taking over the role of Director of Student Services. Cave Creek is an absolute special district to myself as well as my family, and I'm excited to be returning to Cave Creek. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with our leaders, our staff, and our community to make sure that we provide our students and our families the greatest educational experience that we can. So again, I thank you very much. I'm honored, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thank you, and welcome.
We are very excited that you have decided to come back to Cave Creek, and we're all looking forward to working with you. So welcome back.
And then the other administrator that you approved this evening is Jason Snee. He's not able to join us this evening, but if I can, just read a little bit about Jason. So he's the newest member of our leadership team. He's the assistant principal of student services at Cactus Shadows High School. For the past 3 years, Jason has been assistant principal in Glendale schools, and he's served in education for more than 20 years. As an AP, he's led multiple tiered systems of support and development school-wide behavior expectations to help staff and students be successful. As a leader, Jason believes it's important to help students excel and is quick to remind students and families when mistakes are made, it's an opportunity to learn from it and to take time to reflect and understand that there are also natural consequences. We like that at our high school. Prior to his leadership role, he taught middle school and math STEM for several years, again from Deer Valley. So nice that we're recruiting some Deer Valley staff. Maybe they'll bring some of their teachers over here for us. Jason earned his bachelor's degree at ASU in education and Jewish studies. He received his master's in education in counseling from NAU. We're excited to welcome Jason to Cave Creek Unified School District as the assistant principal, where he'll work to continue a strong focus on student achievement. So Jason, if you're listening, welcome.
Okay. Well, welcome, Jason. Item 7.1, approval of district budget for 2023-24, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would move that the governing board adopt the 2023-2024 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, budget is approved. Item 8.1, intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County Community College District for dual enrollment for 2023-24, presented by Dr. Jensen.
Thank you, President Busby, members of the board. I'm excited tonight to share with you just a little bit about, or just to present this item for you. Sometimes we don't celebrate these intergovernmental agreements enough, but there's a lot of work and a lot of partnerships that are to be celebrated in the background of it. This is one that has been in effect really in Cave Creek since 2005. and it allows our high school students to receive dual credit through Paradise Valley Community College. Aaron Scher, our director of college and career readiness, has worked a lot on this, and she kind of oversees the program, and she's looking at some other options as well that will just expand opportunities for our students. So with that, I move that the governing board approve the intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County Community College for dual enrollment for 23-24 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
Just going to ask if we know how many students are involved in this right now. I'm just curious. I hadn't seen the last.
Member Fortney, that's a good question, and I do not have the answer. I'm happy to get it for you, and I will email that out in a board update.
Thanks.
Dr. Jensen, just a few years ago, the courses offered list was much larger. Is that due to staffing issues on our end, staffing issues on Maricopa County colleges? We're almost to the point where it's, I don't want to say not, well, we need to put some more emphasis into it. We need to get that class list back up. I believe 22 or 24 classes, what we offered back in just 3 or 4 years ago. And now we're down to a dozen, if even that many.
Yes, Vice President Brown. So our biggest restriction is the teachers really have to have a master's degree in that content area in order to be certified for the dual credit. And so that is the biggest concern. Paradise Valley Community College does a good job of working with us to try to help get our teachers the certifications they need. However, it just goes back to being able to attract people when you have a master's degree, and that's difficult with the salary that we're able to provide them. However, on a positive side, Mrs. Scher and I just actually had a meeting today where we're talking with other groups just about other options to get around the staffing issue. And so we're trying to think outside the box and find some other creative ways to make sure our students still have the opportunities.
I mean, it's a great program, and for us to offer it to our high school students that they can get that dual enrollment and receive that college credit. We know some of the seniors that just graduated Cactus Shadows had, almost the maximum number that we offer. And I know some of those fantastic students that are overachievers, they would love to take more classes to get that dual enrollment. I mean, if it saves them a whole year at a 4-year school, that's a huge savings to them and their family. So
yes, stay tuned. We've got some good ideas up our sleeves, and I was very hopeful after a phone call today, and so I'm hoping that that will progress as well.
good.
Dr. Jensen, and I assume our staff has to also say that they're willing to do that as well. Even if they do have their master's, they have to agree. Do they get an extra stipend or anything, or
I
not
do
at this
not
time?
believe they get any extra stipends.
Okay.
Depending on if it's part of some other program, they might get something, but for the most part, they do not get much for incentives, other than great students in their classes who are highly motivated and want to graduate high school with multiple college credits.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 8.2, authorization to exceed M&O budgeted subsections for 2023-24, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move the governing board approve authorization to exceed subsections in the 23-24 M&O budget without exceeding the bottom line budget limit. So this is just basically authorization that says if we were to go over on one of the budget lines with our expenditures, that's okay as long as the bottom line doesn't exceed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Item 8.3, sole source vendor, Vector Solutions, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have used Vector Solutions as a module for our mandatory trainings that we do with our staff. But we have also now added them as the tool that we use to do our evaluations for our teachers. And we will be expanding that to our administrators next year and our classified staff. So we're going to be using this product a lot more, which means we're paying them more than $10,000. Because they have a unique niche in this area and the combination of the training that they do, and because it is one of the preferred vendors from our trust, which when we use this vector training, as I had mentioned earlier, when our employees participate in these trainings, we get a loyalty discount because we're training our staff and preventing them from getting injured or causing liability issues for the district. So I move that the governing board approve Vector Solution as a sole source, which will then allow us to continue using them as a vendor.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one passes. Item 8.4, Workers' Compensation Insurance Renewal for 2023-24, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As we discussed earlier in the budget presentation, the renewal rate for workers' comp insurance has gone down. And so I move that the governing board approve the 2003-2004 workers' comp insurance renewal with the Arizona Alliance for Workers' Compensation at the rates indicated on the coverage acceptance form as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 8.5, Property and Liability Insurance Renewal for 2023-24, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As we discussed earlier in the budget presentation, I shared with you the increase, and we did have a representative. Thank you very much for our trust representative, Kendra, to come out and speak to you and answer your questions. Thank you, Member Brown, for your thoughtful questions and concerns about this renewal. So as you can see, there is an increase in the premium cost. I think that I personally know that insurance has increased. I know my homeowner's insurance has increased. I know my automobile insurance has increased over the last few years. It is just not something that we all like to see, but we know that that's what the reality is of the market right now. So I move that the governing board approve the 2003-2004 property and liability insurance renewal with the Arizona Risk Retention Trust as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. All right, we got our liability insurance. Item 8.6, Field Experience Agreement between Grand Canyon University and Cave Creek Unified School District, presented by Dr. Jensen.
Yes, President Busby, members of the board. This is another one where there's a lot of work that goes in, and I think we should celebrate the partnerships that we have because they do bring us potential new employees. So administration moves that the governing board approves the field experience agreement between Grand Canyon University and Cave Creek Unified School District as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. 8.7, approval of stipends for returning certified, classified, and administrative employee groups with the additional one-time funding allocation, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President and members of the board. As we discussed earlier, I shared information in the budget presentation about the stipends and what our recommendation is, that we take a third of the one-time allocation and we give it to our staff in a form of some sort of a stipend. So we are asking the board to approve this. The governing board did have kind of a detail of how that will look. So to give staff an idea, if I may just read what that looks like to staff. So if you are a certified employee, that would be $300 $300 for every year that you've worked. Well, I apologize. I wish it was $300 for every year. It's not. $300 for the first year and then $76 for every year of service. That's how the allocation goes available to the certified. Now, when we're looking at classified staff and administrative staff, so classified staff, when we split that amongst all of them, it'll be about $400 to $430, depending on the number of staff that come back, because you have to have already worked here a year in order to earn this stipend. And then with our returning administrators, same thing. A returning administrator would receive about $1,700. So I move that the governing board approve the one-time stipend pay for our staff as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
Ms. Rodriguez, how is the financial department going to parcel these stipends out to the employees? We're not going to lump it in with the regular paycheck. It's going to be a separate payment?
I'm going to ask that it's a separate pay run so that the employees can actually see that money, because sometimes when you lump it in with their regular pay, it doesn't really have that much of an impact on them. I really want them to see this and know that we appreciate them and we're giving them these additional funds.
Now, the discussion that Mr. Hendrickson, Dr. Hendrickson had with the IBN team, they realize then they'll come back to the table for next year's disbursement of this funds, since this was just the one, this is how we set it up for this year. Next year might be something different.
Yes, that was a conversation, and I was in the negotiation conversation with Dr. Hendrickson, and they all agreed that this is how we're going to spend it this year, but it may look different next year. And they wanted to make sure they had that opportunity. They wanted to make sure they weren't committing themselves to the 3-year allocation looking the same. And so we've all agreed upon that.
Yeah, I think that was smart, and that keeps them involved with this one-time monies from the state, so.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, 8.7 passes. Item 8.8, approval of contract of employment for interim superintendent Bill Dolezal, presented by me. I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the contract as it was presented to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Okay,
Welcome.
go ahead.
Welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, welcome and congratulations. You can't back out now. Item 9, adjournment. Is there a motion? to
So
adjourn?
moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, we are done.